In the years of the Second Age, before the Númenóreans settled in Middle-earth, tribal hillmen inhabited the lands west and south of the Misty Mountains, possibly as far down as the valleys surrounding the White Mountains. Wary of the men who came out of the west, they came to fear and hate them. They were hunted and persecuted in such numbers that they had dwindled by the start of the Third Age. They are really bit players in the Lord of the Rings movies, but actually were engaged in the assault on Helm's Deep alongside Saruman's forces in the book. They operated in conjunction with the Uruk-hai in raids on settlements and attacked soft targets. So their combat action was limited to preying on the weak and suffering ignominious defeat. Not an exemplary faction to play, but I love playing the underdogs. In the Middle-earth strategy battle game, the Warband is primarily a foot-mobile army, but does have limited cavalry options. The Legendary Legion in the War in Rohan expansion give you some punch the Warband was lacking and makes it a lot more fun to play. You can also play Dunland as a warband in battle companies, and they have a system for the advancement of members of your company. The biggest hurdle with playing Dunland is a perennial one with Games Workshop. The miniatures cost a lot of money. Let me show you with two example warbands to start. The first example is a 300-point warband I pulled from a Reddit group. Sorry, I can't remember who posted it to give credit, but it was an example list for someone who had a question. This has only 18 models and it's 298 points. Yet it costs out at roughly $333 the way Games Workshop has it boxed. And now here's a sample 800-point list I pulled from Cinderfall Gaming. It is comprised of 799 points and 53 models. To flesh this out from Games Workshop would cost you around $700 USD. There is a caveat here though. I looked at numbers, but one will end up with extra figures due to the way the boxes are structured. I don't want to engage in GW bashing because I love their figures, but even though they are publicly traded, I have only a guess at their costs of production and distribution and contractual obligations. But these are the facts. As one of my side goals is to play the War of the Rings with Dunlendings, as well as a Middle-earth strategy battle game, I was looking for efficient ways to mobilize forces. Having gotten into the hobby of 3D printing for terrain, I discovered that there are lots of alternative models available at low prices for a number of war games. So my thought was that I could start with a warband I can afford, then supplement it or replace it with Games Workshop miniatures. There is always a very real fear that once you get into a warband, it could involve a style you don't like, so this was important. I was looking at playing a pure Dunland faction only, so I needed a specific look for the figures. I could add allies later if desired, or tag the Dunlendings on as allies to an Isengard company. Sorry, after years of teaching military history, I just can't bring myself to use the term army for a force this small. Yet I want the ability to build War of the Rings forces as well, so we were looking at large numbers of miniatures. In an attempt to proxy a warband while I tried to collect Lord of the Rings miniatures, I came across several makers of Viking-esque STLs. I was primarily looking for figures that could be printed in resin, as my experience with FDM printed miniatures is nil, and I could not imagine that it would turn out great. But much to my great joy, I ended up getting in on several Patreons and Kickstarters that could provide Dunlendings. My forces will look more varied than normal as I combine several manufacturers who have different digital styles, and that personalization is important to me. To play Dunlendings, you need several types of figures. Wildmen, the standard troop type for the warband, should be numerous. You need warriors with several options: bow, shield, and hand weapon, and a two-handed axe. You will need one or two banner bearers and chieftains to go along with them. You will need armored infantry for the elite bodyguard. I've heard these pronounced Huscarls, Huscarls, and Huscarl, so I don't care which one you use. You will need up to 4 characters supplied for your army. You may also want to add in Crebain or raven or crow-like birds to give you some additional distraction. Plus, don't forget the all-important cavalry. This is your truly armored punch. I started building my force with Asgard Rising as I came across their Tales from Midgard range on Kickstarter by happenstance. They included warriors, archers, berserkers, shield maidens, and cavalry that could all easily slot into Dunland's forces. They also had a berserker and shield maiden that could do duty as Gorulf and Frida, and at the time I figured I could proxy an Oathmaker. And here is how they all look. I printed up the two figures on the left as they came as STLs, just with no scaling. You can see that Frida is pretty big. Even with the base at 3 millimeters, she clocks in at about 35 millimeters in height. The Berserker is also hefty and makes a great Gorulf alternative. I will get to the figure on the right in a moment. Here is how the Asgard miniatures compare to the early 2000 miniatures. The archers come in the same modular style, and you can make them with bows pulled or loosed and with or without helmets. Again, if you judge by the bottom of the feet to the top of their heads, they run about 32 millimeters. These are scaled at 75%. The warriors are modular, and although they only come in a few poses, there are a lot of weapons customization options available. I think the figure in the Viking helmet with uplifted axe was what got me interested in the campaign, as he makes a great chieftain. Here are the infantry figures compared to the older Lord of the Rings figures. Even though I scaled them down to 75%, I feel that they make a really good match. The fact that you can tweak scales is one of the benefits of using 3D printing. Here you can see what I mean about the scaling. The figure on the left is an unaltered cavalryman. The one on the right is done at 75% scale. You do get some degradation in the detail, but at this size it's not noticeable. I love the pony size of the horses as opposed to the thoroughbreds of the Rohirrim, though. Then someone got me looking into Medbury Miniatures, and I signed up for their Patreon, as the historical part of the Patreon was the Wars of the Bruce, which I also love. Hey, double scratch my itch. Medbury Miniatures is probably right at the top of the providers, as they offer a good selection of basic troops, even though the poses are limited to only 3 or 4. Here are their Wildmen unpainted. The size is a bit larger than the figures I already have, but only by a millimeter. And here they are painted up. Although there are only 3 basic poses, they make for a suitable warband when painted in different colors. I do appreciate the fact that a balding figure is included. Next up are the Woodsmen. These are good for two-handed axemen, but the number of poses is limited. The plus that there is an archer you can add to your warband. Being lightly armored, they fit into the vision of a Dunland that is poor and agrarian and living on the fringes of society. Medbury also makes warriors with shields that make a good fit into this warband. I like the simple shields in this case, the flowing poses, and having both hand axes and swords available. Here is the set of chieftains. I like the poses, but would probably use the bowman as a regular soldier rather than a commander. Once again, the sizes are good and consistent across figure types. I do love the Medbury cavalry. In the Middle-earth strategy battle game, you will only use a few of them at a time, so the limit of 2 poses is not a major issue. I have a lot of the Asgard cavalry printed, so we'll probably use those in War of the Rings, but we'll stick to the Medbury miniatures for smaller games. But in this picture, you can see the stylistic differences between the 2 designers. In retrospect, 80% would be a better scale for the Asgard miniature printing. Both lines are currently lacking a banner bearer for the Dunlendings. I saw that with a quick kit bash of a commander and some pieces available off of Thingiverse. I'm very happy with this result. The Forge World Oathmaker is pretty specific in its look. The individual is shown folding his hand after swearing the blood oath with Saruman. I chose to use one of the Medbury Wildmen to customize my own, which you can see on the left. Swap out the sword for a bone knife, add a horse skull on the belt courtesy of Thingiverse, and it looks great. What I have not found are good Huscarls, since they need to have great axes. In most fantasy lore, these are only able to be wielded by strong fighters and can do incredible amounts of damage due to their weight. Asgard has figures that I can use for this, but they come with shields on their backs. I imagine I will use Medbury's Dunland Warriors for Huscarls until I settle on a Warband roster. However, the Bitsmith on my mini factory does offer chainmail wearing warriors with great axes, but at $20 for the set, I may have to hold off on them for a bit. The most elusive miniatures were the Crebain. I tried a number of manufacturers but came back to the printing goes ever on time and time again. I am on a second year of a subscription with them and love what they do. I pulled their ravens from the main site on my mini factory and then used an oak tree from Printable scenery and a cracked desert base at the appropriate size and merged the tree and the base for printing. Because I can reprint them, I am not as worried that they may break or come apart like their more expensive counterparts. So now I had 3 different companies I could pull from, and what was my solution? Yep, use them all. I found several different issues, however, in looking at trying to put this warband together. The first is that the miniatures were all sculpted differently, so the Asgard miniatures were more slender than their Medbury counterparts. Asgard miniatures printed at 32 millimeters or larger, so I rescaled them. In retrospect, I probably scaled them down too much, especially the cavalry figures. None of the companies made banner bearers or oath makers, but I kit bashed them from Medbury Miniatures in pieces found on Thingiverse. Crebain were an oddity. Fortunately, I could piece together what I needed using one manufacturer and some different 40mm bases. I recommend looking into several brands if you want to play Dunland. Medbury Miniatures, Asgard Rising, and the printing goes ever on. They all have good designs and, more importantly, pre-supported figures for purchase. I encourage you to try out 3D printing and see what you can come up with for your own Dunlanding Warband. Here is my Dunland force I will be using in the Burning of the Westfold scenario coming on the channel in a couple of weeks. Links to the manufacturers and figures are provided in the description. I hope this has helped you out and entertained you. If so, please like and share.